Hello and welcome. Today, we are diving deep into that feeling. You know the one, that mix of excitement and, let's be honest, a little bit of anxiety about artificial intelligence. But what if I told you we've actually been through all this before? That the panic we're seeing right now is almost a perfect echo of a fight we had decades ago over a much, much simpler piece of tech. So, what on earth could a pocket calculator possibly have in common with something as complex as AI? Well, it sounds like the start of a bad joke, but the answer really reveals this surprisingly predictable pattern for how we, as people, handle these world-changing technologies.
All right, let's jump in a time machine and rewind the clock. Before AI, before the internet, there was another tech panic that had classrooms and parents completely freaking out. And believe it or not, we are talking about the humble pocket calculator.
You see, it turns out there's this predictable cycle for how we adopt new technology. It almost always kicks off with a ton of suspicion. That suspicion then boils over into outright rejection. But, over time, that fear usually chills out a bit. It softens into tolerance. And then, before you know it, the tech is so woven into our lives we can't imagine how we ever lived without it. And that is exactly what happened with the calculator. I mean, back in the 70s and 80s, there were actual serious debates in schools about banning them from the classroom entirely. It sounds totally wild to us now, right? But back then, the fear was very, very real. So, what was the big deal? The core fear was that this new gadget would just make kids dumber. Seriously, people were convinced that if you relied on a machine to do the math, you'd lose the fundamental skill of doing it in your own head. But what really happened? Well, we basically made a trade. We outsourced the boring calculations so we could focus our brain power on higher-level problem-solved. Does any of this sound familiar? Yeah, it should, because that exact same cycle of suspicion and rejection is playing out right now, in real time with artificial intelligence. I mean, the parallels are just uncanny. The old fear of losing mental math skills, it's been swapped out for the fear of losing critical thinking skills. And the classroom debates about banning calculators, that's now become this whole arms race of AI detectors versus so-called humanizer tools. It's the same panic, just supercharged for a new, way more powerful technology. But is AI really a threat to how we think, or is it just another tool, albeit a crazy powerful one? Okay, let's get practical and look at a real-world example of how a professional is using it right now. So let's take a look at a super complex medical task, a meta-analysis. Now, what's that? It's basically a study of studies. Researchers have to comb through dozens, sometimes hundreds of different scientific papers to find a bigger truth. It demands incredible precision and, frankly, a massive amount of tedious work. Now, traditionally, a project like this takes days. I mean, literal days of a highly trained researcher's life just spent on the painstaking, exhausting process of collecting and making sense of mountains of data. Okay, so what happened when an AI was brought in to help, not as the lead researcher, but as an assistant? The entire rigorous workflow was done in just 4 hours. 4. And this is the important part, without sacrificing a single bit of scientific quality. And here is the absolute key. The researcher, Dr. Sergio Haimovich, he put it perfectly. He said the AI was just an accelerator. It handled the grunt work, the time-consuming stuff. But the human was still asking the questions, making the judgments, and verifying the results. The human brain was still in the driver's seat. So if we agree AI is a tool, then the big question becomes, how do we make sure we're using it right? The whole conversation has to shift from, should we ban it, to how do we use it responsibly? Yeah, the path forward really can't be this cat and mouse game. The goal shouldn't be to just ban or detect AI. Instead, we need to figure out how to govern and leverage it, but, and this is a big but, with really clear and strong safeguards in place. So what do those safeguards look like? Well, here are 8 principles to get us started. 1. Transparency. You got to disclose when you're using AI. Simple. 2. Responsibility. A human is always accountable for the final output. 3. Data integrity. No fake or made-up data. 4. Traceability. You have to be able to show your work. 5. Privacy. Obviously, protect sensitive information. 6. Training. Teach people how to use these tools properly. 7. Assessment. Kick the tires on everything the AI gives you, test it critically. And finally, number 8. Red lines. Have zero tolerance for stuff like plagiarism or AI hallucinations. That's when an AI just confidently makes things up. Following these rules isn't just about playing defense and avoiding problems. It's about remembering why we do this kind of advanced work in the first place. What's the real goal here? And we really need to get this right because the stakes are only getting higher. This is about way more than just writing academic papers. Autonomous surgical robots are already being tested. The adoption of these incredibly advanced tools is going to happen. It's inevitable. So building a culture of safety and clear standards right now is absolutely critical. And this really brings us full circle. Just like the calculator didn't make us forget how to do math, AI is not a shortcut to thinking less. It's a tool that frees us from the tedious work, so we can focus our uniquely human intellect on what truly matters, solving complex problems, being creative, and ultimately helping people. So at the end of the day, the real question isn't if we should allow AI into our lives. I think that ship has pretty much sailed. The much more interesting question is how we integrate it responsibly to actually make our work and our lives better without losing our grip on ethics and accountability. History shows us that panic fades, but smart adaptation is what moves us forward. And right now, it's our turn to adapt.